The morning light from two bright suns painted the crystal walls of the royal palace in golden colors. Queen Zara walked slowly through the long hallways, her beautiful scales shining like jewels. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. The unity ceremony would happen in just a few hours, where she and her husband, King Thane, would promise to love each other forever in front of leaders from across the galaxy. Zara had been queen for 15 years now. She ruled the Veltari Empire with kindness and wisdom. Unlike other rulers who treated different species badly, she believed everyone deserved respect. That's why she allowed humans to work in her palace, even though many of her people didn't like it. She thought all living beings had value, no matter where they came from. As she walked toward the grand chamber where the ceremony would take place, her mind was full of happy thoughts. She remembered when she first met Thane 20 years ago. He was so charming and strong. Their wedding had been the most beautiful celebration their planet had ever seen. Even though royal marriages were often just for politics, theirs had been different. They truly loved each other, or so she believed. The palace was buzzing with activity. Servants from many different planets were decorating the halls with exotic flowers. The smell of delicious food drifted from the kitchens. Important guests were arriving from distant worlds. Everything seemed perfect for this special day. But then something unexpected happened. A human guard stepped directly into her path. This was very strange. Humans who worked in the palace were taught never to speak to the royal family unless spoken to first. They were supposed to stay invisible, doing their jobs quietly in the background. Speaking to the queen without permission could mean death. The guard looked nervous but determined. His name was David, though the queen had never learned the names of most human workers. He had worked in the palace for 7 years, always doing his job perfectly. Zara had noticed him before because he was different from the others. While most guards just stood in their positions, David always seemed to be watching everything carefully. He paid attention to details that others missed. David's face was serious and worried. His hands were shaking slightly, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing his head respectfully, "I know I'm not supposed to speak to you. I know this could cost me my life. But I can't stay quiet anymore." Zara stopped walking. Her purple eyes looked at him with surprise. In all her years as queen, no human had ever approached her like this. Her first thought was to call for other guards. This behavior was completely against the rules. But something in David's eyes made her pause. She saw genuine fear there, but not fear for himself. He was afraid for her. "What are you doing?" she asked quietly. "You know the punishment for this." David took a deep breath. "Your Majesty, please don't go into the grand chamber today. Don't attend the unity ceremony. Your husband, King Thane, he's planning to hurt you." The words hit Zara like a physical blow. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The accusation was so shocking, so impossible, that she almost laughed. Thane was her beloved husband. They had built their empire together. They had shared dreams, hopes, and countless tender moments. How could this human guard possibly think Thane would hurt her? "That's impossible," she whispered. "You don't know what you're saying." But David didn't back down. "Your Majesty, I wish it wasn't true. I've served in this palace for 7 years. I've watched you and the king together. I've seen how much you love him. That's why this is so hard to say." He looked around nervously, making sure no one else could hear them. 3 nights ago, I was cleaning the hallways near the king's private rooms. I heard voices inside. I wasn't trying to spy, but the voices were loud and angry. I recognized the king's voice, but there were others too. Voices I didn't recognize. Zara's heart started beating faster. "What did you hear?" David's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "The king was talking to someone about the ceremony today. But it wasn't about celebrating your love. They were talking about making it look like an accident. They mentioned something about human rebels attacking during the ceremony. They said it would be the perfect cover. The queen felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. You're lying, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Your Majesty, I swear on my life that I'm telling the truth. I heard them mention the Zephyrian coalition. They're going to help the king take full control of the empire. In exchange, he's promised to give them half of our territory. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless warriors. They had been trying to expand their territory for decades. If they had made a deal with Thane, it would explain some things that had been bothering Zara lately. Recently, Thane had been acting strange. He seemed distant and worried about something. When she asked him about it, he always said it was just stress from ruling the empire. He had also been having secret meetings that he claimed were about boring government business. Now these meetings made sense in a terrible way. Why would you risk your life to tell me this? Zara asked. David looked directly into her eyes. Because you're a good queen, Your Majesty. You treat everyone fairly, even humans like me. Most rulers in the galaxy think we're just tools to be used. But you see us as real people. You've made laws to protect us. You've given us hope for a better future. He paused, then continued. I have a daughter back on Earth. She's only 8 years old. Because of the peace treaties you've made, she might grow up in a galaxy where humans are treated with respect. If something happens to you, all of that will disappear. The Zephyrians don't care about peace or fairness. They only care about power. Zara felt tears forming in her eyes. Not because of David's words, but because deep in her heart, she was starting to believe him. There had been signs. Small things that hadn't made sense at the time, but now formed a terrible pattern. Last week, Thane had suggested changing the security arrangements for the ceremony. He said it would be more symbolic if human guards were positioned around the chamber. At the time, she thought it was a nice gesture showing trust in human loyalty. Now she realized it would make it easy to blame humans when something went wrong. 2 weeks ago, she had found Thane burning some documents in his private fireplace. When she asked about it, he said they were just old trade agreements. But why burn old paperwork in the middle of the night? And just yesterday, he had been unusually affectionate, almost as if he was saying goodbye. He had held her longer than usual and told her how much he loved her. She thought he was just being romantic before their special ceremony. Now it seemed like the actions of someone feeling guilty about what he was planning to do. I don't want to believe you, Zara said softly, but I'm starting to think you might be telling the truth. David nodded sadly. I hoped I was wrong, Your Majesty. I've spent sleepless nights trying to convince myself that I misunderstood what I heard, but I can't take that risk with your life. The Queen looked toward the grand chamber where hundreds of guests were already gathering. The ceremony was supposed to start in 2 hours. If David was right, she would be walking into a trap. If he was wrong, she would be destroying her marriage and her relationship with Thane based on the word of a human guard. But as she thought about it more, she realized that David had nothing to gain from lying. If his story was false, and she confronted Thane about it, David would certainly be executed. He was risking everything to warn her. What do you think I should do? She asked. Don't go to the ceremony, David said immediately. Let me prove to you that I'm telling the truth. I know ways to move through the palace without being seen. I can show you evidence of what the king is planning. Zara looked at this brave human who was willing to die to protect her. In that moment, she made a decision that would change everything. She would trust him. Not because she wanted to believe her husband was a traitor, but because something deep inside told her that David was, risking his life to save hers. Show me, she said quietly. And with those 2 words, Queen Zara chose to trust the loyalty of a human guard over the love of her alien husband. It was a choice that would save her life and change the future of the entire galaxy. Queen Zara's heart was beating so fast, she thought it might burst. Standing in the crystal hallway with David, she felt like her whole world was falling apart. But she needed to see proof with her own eyes. She couldn't make such a terrible decision about her husband based only on words. "Show me the evidence," she whispered to David. "But if you're lying to me, if this is some kind of trick, I will make sure you pay for it." David nodded seriously. "I understand, Your Majesty. Follow me. But we need to be very careful. If anyone sees us together, they'll know something is wrong." The human guard led her away from the main hallways where other people were walking around. Instead, he took her to a small door that looked like it was just part of the wall decoration. Zara had walked past this spot thousands of times, but never noticed the hidden entrance. "How do you know about this?" she asked as David opened the secret door. "When you work in a place for 7 years and people treat you like you're invisible, you learn things," he said quietly. "Servants use these passages to move around without disturbing the important people. I've spent a lot of time exploring them." They stepped into a narrow tunnel that ran behind the palace walls. It was dark and dusty, clearly not meant for someone like a queen to use. Zara had to lift her long dress to avoid tripping. The tunnel was so narrow that they had to walk in single file. "I never knew these existed," Zara said, amazed. "Most rulers don't," David replied. "These tunnels were built hundreds of years ago so servants could do their work without being seen. Over time, people forgot about most of them. But if you're someone like me, someone who needs to stay out of sight, you find them very useful." As they walked through the hidden passages, David told her more about what he had learned. "Your Majesty, I need you to know that I didn't want to spy on anyone, but over the past few months, I started noticing strange things happening in the palace." "What kind of strange things?" Zara asked. "New guards were brought in, but they weren't from our usual training programs. They came from planets that are known to be friendly with the Zephyrians. Also, some of the old guards who had served your family for years suddenly disappeared. When I asked about them, I was told they had been transferred to other duties, but I never saw them again." This information made Zara's stomach feel sick. She had trusted Thane to handle all the security arrangements. She never thought to question his decisions about who should protect them. "There's more," David continued as they walked deeper into the tunnels. "The king has been having meetings late at night in his private chambers. Always the same people, always very secretive. I only found out about them because I was working. Late one night, cleaning the halls when I saw these strange visitors coming and going. They reached a spot where the tunnel had a small opening that looked into one of the palace rooms. David motioned for Zara to be very quiet and to look through the opening. "This is the king's private meeting room," he whispered. "If we're lucky, we might see something that proves what I'm telling you." They didn't have to wait long. The door to the meeting room opened, and King Thane walked in. Zara's heart jumped when she saw her husband. He looked worried and angry, very different from how he had been acting around her lately. Behind Thane came 3 other figures. 2 of them were wearing the dark uniforms of Zephyrian military officers. Zara recognized them immediately. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy for their distinctive black and silver uniforms. The 3rd person was someone she had never seen before, but from his appearance he was clearly not from their planet. "Is everything ready for today?" one of the Zephyrian officers asked Thane. Zara felt like she might faint. Her husband was actually meeting with their enemies, just like David had said. Thane nodded. "The ceremony will begin in less than 2 hours. All the security changes have been made. The human guards are in position around the Grand Chamber just as we planned." "Good," said the other Zephyrian. "When the incident happens, it will look like the humans started a rebellion. No one will question why the queen had to be removed. For everyone's safety." The word "removed" hit Zara like a punch to the stomach. They were talking about killing her, and they were going to blame innocent humans for it. "Are you sure this is the only way?" Thane asked, and for a moment, Zara thought she heard some sadness in his voice. You said yourself that she would never agree to give up half the empire to us, the first Zephyrian replied. She's too attached to her ideas about peace and treating all species equally. Those ideas are weakness, and weakness has no place in a strong empire. Thane was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that broke Zara's heart completely. You're right. Zara has always been too soft. She doesn't understand that sometimes you have to be cruel to be strong. Her policies toward humans and other species have made our enemies think we're weak. It's time for that to change. Tears started rolling down Zara's cheeks. This was her husband, the man she had loved for 20 years, talking about her like she was just an obstacle to remove. Once she's gone, you'll have complete control, the unknown third person said. Our agreement will give you the strong military support you need, and we'll get the territory we want. Everyone wins. Except for the humans who will be blamed for this, Thane said. But I suppose that's just the price of progress. The Zephyrian laughed coldly. The humans are useful for taking blame, but that's about all they're good for. Once we have control, we can deal with them however we want. Zara had to put her hand over her mouth to keep from crying out loud. Not only were they planning to kill her, but they were also planning to hurt all the humans in the Empire who had trusted her to protect them. David gently touched her arm and motioned for them to move away from the opening. They had heard enough. As they quietly made their way back through the tunnels, Zara's mind was spinning. Everything she had believed about her life was a lie. The man she loved didn't really love her back. He saw her kindness as weakness and her desire for peace as a problem to solve. I'm so sorry, Your Majesty, David whispered as they walked. I know how much this must hurt. How long have you known? She asked through her tears. I started suspecting something 3 weeks ago, but I only heard the actual plan 3 nights ago. I've been trying to figure out what to do ever since. They reached another hidden opening, this one looking into an empty storage room. David checked carefully to make sure no one was around, then led Zara out of the tunnels. Your Majesty, we don't have much time, he said urgently. The ceremony is supposed to start soon. If you don't show up, they'll come looking for you. Zara wiped her tears and tried to think clearly. What do you think will happen if I just don't go to the ceremony? They'll probably say you're sick and postpone it. But that will just give them time to make a new plan. And now that I've warned you, they might realize that someone knows about their plot. So what are my choices? Zara asked. David looked at her seriously. We can try to expose them publicly, but we'd need more evidence than just what we overheard. Or... He paused, looking uncomfortable. Or what? Or we run. We get out of the palace before they realize you know the truth. We find somewhere safe where we can plan what to do next. The idea of running away seemed impossible to Zara. She was a queen. She had responsibilities to her people. But then she thought about all the innocent humans who would be blamed for her death if Thane's plan succeeded. She thought about David's 8-year-old daughter on Earth, and all the other families who would suffer if the Zephyrians took control. If we run, where would we go? She asked. I have some ideas, David said. But first we need to get out of this palace alive, and Your Majesty, I need you to know that once we leave, there's no going back. Your old life will be over. Zara looked at this brave human who had risked everything to save her. A few hours ago, she had been a happy queen preparing for a celebration with her beloved husband. Now she was a woman who had lost everything but gained one loyal friend. Then let's go, she said. Show me how to survive. David smiled for the first time since this whole terrible day had begun. Yes, Your Majesty, let's get you out of here safely. As they prepared to leave everything Zara had ever known behind, she realized that sometimes the people who care about you most are the ones you never expected to notice you at all. Time was running out. Queen Zara could hear the sounds of the unity ceremony beginning in the distance. Music was playing, and she could hear the voices of hundreds of guests who had come from across the galaxy to watch what they thought would be a celebration. Instead, it was supposed to be the day she died. David led her quickly through more hidden passages. "Your Majesty, we need to get to your private chambers first. There are things you'll need if we're going to survive outside the palace." "What kind of things?" Zara asked as they hurried along the narrow tunnels. "Important documents that prove who you are. Money or valuable items we can trade. Maybe some clothes that won't make you look like a queen," David explained. "If we're going to disappear, you can't look like royalty anymore." This idea felt strange to Zara. She had been dressed like a queen every day for 15 years. She had never worn simple clothes or tried to blend in with regular people. But she understood that David was right. If Thane's people were looking for her, being obvious would get them caught. They reached another hidden door that opened into Zara's private bedroom. David carefully checked to make sure no one was inside before motioning for her to enter. "We need to be fast," he whispered. "Someone will notice soon that you're not at the ceremony." Zara rushed to her private safe, a secure container hidden behind a beautiful painting on her wall. Inside were important items she had kept for emergencies, though she never imagined an emergency like this. There were documents that proved her identity as the real queen, some rare jewels that were worth a fortune, and ancient artifacts from her family's history. "These items can prove that I'm the legitimate ruler," she told David as she packed them into a small bag. "If we ever get the chance to fight back, people will need to see these." While Zara gathered her important belongings, David went to her closet. He found some of her simplest clothes, items she wore when she wanted to relax in private. They weren't fancy, but they still looked expensive. "Your Majesty, you'll need to change into these," he said, holding up a plain dress and simple shoes. "And we'll need to do something about your scales." Zara's scales were beautiful and distinctive. They marked her as royalty from the Veltari species, but they also made her easy to recognize. "I have some makeup that can make them look duller," she said. "It won't hide them completely, but it might help." As Zara quickly changed clothes and disguised her scales, David kept watch by the door. "Your Majesty, I need to tell you something else. I haven't just been watching and listening these past few weeks. I've been preparing." "Preparing for what?" "For this exact situation. I was hoping I'd never need to use my preparations, but I wanted to be ready just in case." Zara looked at him with surprise. "What do you mean?" David looked a little embarrassed. "I've been hiding supplies in different places around the palace and outside it. Food, water, basic medical supplies, even a small transport ship." "You have a ship?" Zara couldn't believe it. "It's not much. Just a small cargo transport that I borrowed from the delivery fleet. I've been fixing it up slowly, making sure it could make a long journey if needed. It's hidden in the agricultural sector of the palace grounds." Zara realized that David had been thinking about her safety far longer than she had known. While she was trusting her husband and living her normal life, this human guard had been quietly preparing to save her life. "Why did you do all this?" she asked. David stopped looking out the door and turned to face her. "Because I've seen what happens when good leaders disappear, Your Majesty. I've seen planets where cruel rulers take over and make life terrible for everyone. You're different. You actually care about people like me, people who don't have power or money. The galaxy needs more leaders like you, not fewer." Just then, they heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Someone was coming toward the Queen's chambers. "We need to go now," David whispered urgently. But before they could move, the door opened. Captain Velthak, who had been the head of the Queen's security for many years, walked into the room. Zara's heart sank. Velthak had always been loyal to her family. She trusted him completely. "Your Majesty," Velthak said, but his voice sounded cold and unfriendly. "The king is wondering where you are. The ceremony was supposed to start 20 minutes ago." Zara tried to act normal. I was just getting ready. I'll be there soon. But Velthak's eyes moved to the bag in her hands and her simple clothes. Then he looked at David standing next to her. His expression became suspicious. "Why are you dressed like that? And why is this human in your private chambers?" he asked. David stepped slightly in front of Zara. "Sir, the Queen asked me to help her with something private." Velthak's hand moved to the weapon at his side. "I think I know what's happening here. The king warned me that someone might try to prevent the Queen from attending the ceremony. He said there might be humans plotting against the royal family." Zara's heart started racing. She realized that Velthak was part of the conspiracy. Her own security chief, someone she had trusted for years, was working with Thane to betray her. "Velthak, you don't understand," she said. "My husband is planning to—" "Your husband is planning to save this empire from your weakness," Velthak interrupted. "Your soft policies toward humans and other inferior species have made us look weak to our enemies. It's time for stronger leadership." The word inferior made Zara angry. "These people aren't inferior. They're just different from us." "That's exactly the kind of thinking that needs to change," Velthak said. He started to draw his weapon. David moved fast. Before Velthak could fully draw his weapon, David grabbed a heavy vase from a nearby table and threw it at him. The vase hit Velthak in the shoulder and knocked him off balance. "Run, Your Majesty!" David shouted. They rushed, out of the room and back into the hidden passages. Behind them, they could hear Velthak calling for backup guards. "He'll alert everyone that we're trying to escape," Zara said as they ran through the narrow tunnels. "I know," David replied. "We need to get to the transport ship quickly before they can organize a search." They moved through the tunnels faster than before. But they could hear sounds of pursuit behind them. Velthak had found the hidden door and was following them with other guards. "This way," David said, leading Zara down a tunnel she hadn't seen before. "This passage leads directly to the agricultural sector." As they ran, David explained his escape plan. "The ship is hidden among the farming equipment. It looks like just another piece of machinery from the outside. Once we get there, we can take off before anyone realizes what's happening." They reached the end of the tunnel, which opened into a large room filled with farming tools and equipment. David led Zara to what looked like a large old harvesting machine. But when he pressed a hidden button, part of the machine opened up to reveal a small but well-maintained spacecraft inside. "This is incredible," Zara said. "How did you manage this?" "I've had a lot of help from other humans who work here," David admitted. "They don't all know the full plan, but they've been helping me maintain this ship and keep it hidden." They climbed into the ship quickly. David started the engines while Zara secured her bag of important items. The ship was small and simple, but it looked like it could make a long journey. Just as they were about to take off, guards burst into the agricultural building. Velthak was with them, and he was pointing directly at their ship. "There! They're trying to escape!" The guards started shooting at the ship, but David had already started lifting off. The ship rose quickly into the air, moving away from the palace. "We made it," Zara said, hardly believing they had escaped. But David was looking at the control panels with concern. "Your Majesty, we're not safe yet. They'll send pursuit ships after us very soon." As if he had predicted the future, alarms started sounding from the palace below. They could see other ships beginning to launch from the royal hangar. "Where can we go?" Zara asked. David was already changing the ship's direction. "I know a place. It's not comfortable, but it's safe. We can hide there while we figure out what to do next." As their small ship flew away from the palace, Zara looked back at the place that had been her home for 15 years. She could see the lights and decorations for the unity ceremony that was supposed to celebrate her love with Thane. Instead, it had become the day she learned that love could be the biggest lie of all. "I'm scared," she admitted to David. "That's normal, Your Majesty," he replied. "But you're stronger than you know, and you're not alone." As they flew toward an uncertain future, Zara realized that she had lost everything she thought mattered, but gained something she had never expected. A true friend who would risk everything to keep her safe. Their small ship flew through space for what felt like hours. Queen Zara watched through the window as stars moved past them like tiny diamonds in the darkness. She had traveled through space many times before, but always in luxurious royal ships with comfortable seats and fancy food. This simple transport ship was nothing like that, but she felt safer here than she had in her own palace. David was piloting the ship toward a group of large rocks floating in space between two planets. These asteroid fields were dangerous places that most people avoided, but that also made them perfect hiding spots. "Where exactly are we going?" Zara asked. "There's an old mining station hidden in these asteroids," David explained as he carefully steered around the floating rocks. "It was abandoned years ago when the mining company found better places to work. But some people still use it as a safe place to meet and trade." As they got closer, Zara could see a small structure built into one of the larger asteroids. It looked old and rough, nothing like the beautiful crystal buildings she was used to, but it had lights on, which meant people were living there. "Who lives here?" she asked. "People who don't want to be found by governments or armies," David said. "Traders, refugees, people running from bad situations. They won't ask too many questions about who we are as long as we don't cause trouble." They landed the ship in a small docking area carved out of the rock. David turned off the engines and looked at Zara seriously. "Your Majesty, I need to warn you about something. The people here aren't going to treat you like a queen. To them, you're just another person trying to hide from something. That might be hard for you to get used to." Zara nodded. "I understand. I need to learn how to be a regular person anyway." They left the ship and walked into the mining station. Inside, it was warm but dimly lit. There were people from many different planets sitting around tables, talking quietly or eating simple meals. Some looked up when Zara and David entered, but most didn't seem interested in new arrivals. David led her to a small room that he had apparently rented before. It was tiny, with just two simple beds and a small table. After living in a palace with huge rooms and expensive furniture, this felt like a closet to Zara. "I know it's not what you're used to," David said apologetically. "It's fine," Zara replied, though she was trying hard not to show how different this felt. "What do we do now?" David sat down at the small table and pulled out a communication device. "Now we try to figure out what's happening back home and see if we have any friends left." He turned on the device and started searching for news broadcasts from their home planet. What they found made Zara's heart sink even further. King Thane was on every news channel, speaking to reporters with tears in his eyes. He was telling the galaxy that his beloved wife, Queen Zara, had been murdered by human terrorists during what was supposed to be their unity ceremony. He said the humans had been planning this attack for months, and that David, a trusted guard, had been the leader of the conspiracy. "They're showing pictures of both of us," David said grimly. "They're calling us dangerous criminals who need to be captured." Zara watched her husband on the screen, acting like he was heartbroken about her death. His performance was so convincing that even she almost believed he really cared about her. "He's a very good actor," she said bitterly. The news got worse. Thane announced that because of this terrible attack, he was making new laws that would restrict the rights of humans throughout the Empire. He said it was necessary for security, but Zara knew it was really about giving him more power and making the Zephyrians happy. "All the humans who work in government positions are being arrested," David said as he read more news reports. "They're saying it's for investigation, but I think we know what's really happening." Zara felt terrible. Innocent people were being punished because of Thane's lies. Families were being separated, and good people were losing their jobs and freedom. "This is all my fault," she said. "If I had been smarter, if I had seen what Thane was really like—" "No, Your Majesty," David interrupted firmly. "This is not your fault. You trusted someone you loved. That's not a weakness, it's human nature." "Well, I guess it's Veltari nature, too." Over the next few days, they continued watching the news and trying to contact people who might still be loyal to Zara. But every attempt seemed hopeless. People who had once been her friends were now either supporting Thane publicly or staying quiet because they were afraid. "What about the governors of the outer colonies?" Zara suggested. "Some of them never liked the royal court politics. Maybe they would help us." David tried contacting several colonial governors, but the responses were disappointing. Either they didn't believe that Zara was really alive, or they were too scared of Thane's new military alliance with the Zephyrians to risk helping her. "They think I'm dead," Zara said sadly after another failed attempt to reach her supporters. "And even if they believed I was alive, they're afraid to act." But David wasn't giving up. "Your Majesty, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might be our only chance." "What kind of idea?" David looked excited for the first time since they had escaped. "What if we use the same network that helped me prepare for this situation? The humans who work throughout the Empire. They're still there, still doing their jobs, and most people don't really notice them." "I don't understand. How could they help us?" "Think about it," David explained. "There are humans working as servants, maintenance workers, and guards on almost every planet in the Empire. They move around freely because people think they're not important. They can carry messages, gather information, and even move small items without anyone suspecting anything." Zara began to understand. "You want to create a secret network using the human workers." "Exactly. Most of them are angry about the new laws Thane is making. Their families are being hurt by his policies. If we can show them that you're alive and that there's hope for change, many of them might be willing to help." It was a clever idea, but also very dangerous. If Thane discovered what they were doing, it would put many innocent people at risk. "How would we communicate with them safely?" Zara asked. David smiled. "I've been thinking about that too. Remember how I knew about all those secret passages in the palace? Well, humans have been sharing information with each other for years, creating their own hidden communication systems. We just need to connect to that network." Over the next week, David reached out to contacts he had throughout the Empire. He was careful to only contact people he trusted completely, and he never revealed where they were hiding. Slowly, they began to get responses. Humans working on different planets started sending back information about what was really happening in the Empire. The news was both good and bad. The bad news was that Thane's alliance with the Zephyrians was moving quickly. Zephyrian military forces were already being stationed on key planets, and they were taking control of important resources. But the good news was that many people were starting to have doubts about Thane's story. Some of the details about the supposed human terrorist attack didn't make sense. Also, people were noticing that the new laws seemed to hurt humans who had always been loyal to the Empire. "There are people who want to believe you're alive," David told Zara after receiving several encouraging messages. "But they need proof." "What kind of proof?" "Something that only the real Queen Zara would know. Something that would convince people that you really survived and that Thane's story is a lie." Zara thought about this carefully. Then she remembered the ancient artifacts she had taken from her safe during their escape. "I have something," she said, showing David a small crystal device that had belonged to her family for generations. "This contains the royal seal and codes that only the legitimate ruler would know. If I can get this to the right people, they'll know I'm alive." "That's perfect," David said. "I know someone who can help us get this to the colonial governors. But, Your Majesty, Once we do this, there's no going back. Thane will know for certain that you're alive, and he'll do everything he can to find us." Zara looked at the crystal device in her hands. It represented everything she had lost, but also everything she hoped to get back. More importantly, it represented hope for all the innocent people who were suffering because of Thane's lies. Then, "Let's do it," she said. "Let's show the galaxy that their real queen is still alive." As they prepared to send their message of hope across the stars, Zara realized that she was no longer just running from her problems. For the first time since this nightmare began, she was fighting back. And she wasn't fighting alone. She had David and a growing network of brave people who believed in something better than fear and hatred. The resistance was about to begin. 3 weeks had passed since Queen Zara and David started building their secret network. Their plan was working better than they had hoped. Messages were spreading across the galaxy through the hidden communication system that humans had created over the years. More and more people were starting to believe that their real queen was still alive. But now came the most dangerous part of their plan. King Thane was holding a grand coronation ceremony where he would officially become the sole ruler of the empire. He was also planning to announce his permanent alliance with the Zephyrians in front of representatives from every planet in the galaxy. "This is our chance," David told Zara as they studied the plans for the coronation. "Everyone important will be there. If we can expose Thane's lies in front of all those people, we can turn the whole empire against him." Zara felt nervous but determined. "How do we get into the palace? Security will be tighter than ever." David smiled. "Remember our secret weapon, the human workers. They'll be everywhere during the ceremony, preparing food, cleaning, and serving the guests. Nobody really notices them, which makes them perfect for getting us inside." Their plan was complex but clever. David would sneak into the palace's communication center and take control of the broadcast system. At the exact moment when Thane was about to announce his alliance with the Zephyrians, David would play the recordings they had made, proving Thane's betrayal. At the same time, Zara would appear in the main hall to show everyone that she was alive. "Your Majesty, I need you to understand how dangerous this is," David said seriously. "Once we start this plan, Thane will try to have us killed immediately. We'll only have one chance to convince people of the truth." "I understand," Zara replied, "but we can't let innocent people suffer because of my husband's lies any longer." The day of the coronation arrived. The palace was busier than Zara had ever seen it. Ships from across the galaxy were landing every few minutes, bringing important guests to witness Thane's moment of triumph. David and Zara approached the palace in a simple transport ship, disguised as food delivery workers. Zara wore plain clothes and had used makeup to make her scales look dull and ordinary. It felt strange to hide who she really was, but she had learned a lot about being invisible over the past few weeks. "Remember, keep your head down and don't talk unless someone asks you a direct question," David whispered as they joined a group of other workers entering the palace. Walking through her own palace as a disguised servant was one of the strangest experiences of Zara's life. She saw guards who had once saluted her respectfully, now treating her like she didn't exist. She passed rooms where she had once held important meetings, now being prepared for Thane's celebration. They separated once they were inside. David headed toward the communication center, while Zara made her way toward the main hall where the ceremony would take place. Her job was to stay hidden until David's signal, then make her dramatic appearance. As David moved through the palace, he used every secret passage and hidden route he had learned over his 7 years of service. The communication center was heavily guarded, but David had an advantage. He knew the work schedules of every human in the palace. "Hey, Tyler," he said quietly to a human technician he recognized. "Remember me? I used to work security." Tyler looked surprised to see him. "David? Everyone says you're a terrorist now. What are you doing here? I need your help with something very important, David said. Something that could change everything for humans in this empire. He quickly explained the real situation to Tyler, showing him some of the evidence they had gathered. Tyler was shocked, but after thinking about it, he agreed to help. My little sister was arrested last week just for being related to someone who worked in the government, Tyler said angrily. If what you're saying is true, then Thane deserves to be exposed. Meanwhile, Zara was hiding in a storage room near the main hall, listening to the sounds of the ceremony beginning. She could hear Thane's voice speaking to the crowd, telling them how much he missed his murdered wife and how he would honor her memory by making the empire stronger. Hearing him lie about loving her made Zara angry, but it also made her more determined to stop him. The ceremony continued for over an hour. Thane spoke about his vision for the future, which included giving the Zephyrians control over half the Empire's territory. Many of the guests seemed uncomfortable with this idea, but no one spoke up against it. Finally, the moment came. Thane was about to officially announce the alliance when David's voice suddenly came through all the speakers in the palace. People of the Empire, you are being lied to, David's voice said clearly. King Thane did not lose his wife to terrorists. He tried to have her killed himself. The hall erupted in shocked voices. Thane looked around frantically, trying to figure out what was happening. Then the recordings began to play. Everyone in the hall could hear Thane's voice talking to the Zephyrian officers about killing Zara and blaming humans for her death. They heard him call his wife weak and agree that humans were only good for taking blame. "This is fake!" Thane shouted over the recordings. "Someone is trying to trick you with false evidence!" But then Zara stepped into the main hall, and the entire room fell silent. "Hello, my people," she said in a strong, clear voice. "As you can see, I am very much alive." The guests stared at her in amazement. Many of them had known her for years, and they could see that this was really their queen, not some imposter. Thane's face turned pale when he saw his wife standing there. "You're supposed to be dead," he whispered. "Sorry to disappoint you," Zara replied. She walked toward the center of the hall, and people moved aside to let her pass. "Did you really think you could murder me and get away with it forever?" The Zephyrian officers who were attending the ceremony started moving toward their weapons, but something unexpected happened. The human workers throughout the hall suddenly stopped being invisible. They stepped forward, forming a protective circle around Zara. "You want to hurt our queen?" said one of the human servants. "You'll have to go through all of us first." More humans appeared from kitchens, hallways, and service areas. In just a few minutes, there were dozens of them standing together, no longer afraid to be seen. But David was still in the communication center, and he was in trouble. Palace guards had found him and Tyler, and they were trying to stop the broadcast. "Keep the recording playing," David shouted to Tyler as guards surrounded them. David fought as hard as he could, but he was outnumbered. Just when it looked like he might be captured, more humans arrived to help him. Workers from all over the palace had heard what was happening and came to join the fight. Back in the main hall, Thane was becoming desperate. "Even if she is alive, she's still a traitor," he yelled. "She's working with human terrorists to destroy our empire." But the guests weren't listening to him anymore. The recordings had been clear, and seeing Zara alive proved that everything Thane had told them was a lie. "The only traitor here is you," said Governor Chen from one of the outer colonies. "You tried to murder your own wife and sell half our empire to our enemies." One by one, the other guests began speaking up against Thane. The Zephyrian officers realized that their plan had failed and started trying to leave, but the palace security forces, the ones who were still loyal to the real royal family, stopped them. Thane made one last desperate attempt to hurt Zara, pulling out a weapon and pointing it at her. But David appeared in the doorway of the hall, injured, but determined to protect his queen one more time. "Don't you dare touch her," David said, stepping between Thane and Zara despite his wounds. "You're just a human," Thane snarled. "You're nothing." "He's worth more than you'll ever be," Zara said firmly. "He has something you never had, real loyalty and genuine care for others." In the end, Thane was arrested by his own palace guards, who realized they had been serving a traitor. The Zephyrian alliance was broken and the Empire was saved from being divided up among its enemies. As the truth spread across the galaxy, people celebrated the return of their real queen. But more importantly, they celebrated the beginning of a new era where humans and other species would be treated as equals. Queen Zara's first official act was to make David her chief advisor and to grant full citizenship rights to all humans in the Empire. The servant class system was abolished forever. "You saved more than just my life," Zara told David as they stood together in the palace gardens a few weeks later. "You saved our entire civilization." David smiled, though he was still recovering from his injuries. "I just did what anyone should do when they see something wrong happening to someone they respect." "Not everyone would have been brave enough," Zara replied. "I'm lucky that you were watching over me." As they looked out over the palace grounds, where humans and aliens now worked together as equals, both Zara and David knew that their friendship had changed the galaxy forever. Sometimes the most important relationships are the ones that seem impossible at first, and sometimes the greatest heroes are the people who are brave enough to do the right thing, even when it seems hopeless.